Hey, how's it going? This is DJ Sports. We're back again with another pod. Got my co-host with me, Shomik Mukherjee and Bobby Meshesha. And we're going to talk everything NBA playoffs. We just had an amazing play-in game yesterday between the Lakers and the Warriors. And we had another game today with the Wizards and Pacers. So we're going to touch on everything in the first round, make some picks, and, let's see for who's right, who's wrong. You guys ready for that?
Do it.
Let's do it, man.
So before we start, I'd like to remind you guys to follow us on our social pages. DJ Sports Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Hit us up at our email, djsportspod@gmail.com. Shomik, I believe you have a whiskey for us today. What do you got?
I do. I've been told, my sources say we're nixing the beer segment, but I do have a little bit of Jack in a glass because otherwise I don't have the social capacity to be on a DJ Sports podcast. I need the liquid courage to be recorded talking about sports.
So is Jack your whiskey of choice, or was that just you just had Jack?
I think it's just a good whiskey to have at home for like just situations where you really need it. It's better than Jim Beam, and it's more tolerable than Jim Beam. I have Jameson sometimes, like just like a nice, relatively inexpensive whiskey to just have at home, and Jack's drinkable out of a glass really easily. It's obviously not like a whiskey you should order by itself at like a bar, unless you're like, if you're gonna mix it with something, you could probably get a Jack. But like if you're gonna like just like sip on a whiskey, it's probably not the whiskey to get, right? But for home for DJ Sports Pod, I think it fits the bill, man.
Bob, any comments on whiskey?
Comments on whiskey. I mean, I don't really drink too much whiskey, but I honestly haven't had the opportunity to. My house doesn't really like have that much liquor. You guys know that, so hopefully when I get my own place, I'll be able to dabble a little bit. But yeah,
literally every time I come on the podcast, one other guest will say, "Oh yeah, I don't really drink like that anymore," and it just makes me look like an alcoholic.
Shomik, I think this is like the third time this has happened. Oh my god, that's hilarious. But yeah, I will say, Bob, like once I moved out for college, one of the first things I did was try a bunch of different whiskey. So
I would say when I was living out for college, I would always keep a Jameson at my place. That was kind of my go-to. I would say.
It's all reliable.
Really
Reliable.
reliable.
Kind of wanna move on from that though.
Level up.
Try to get to the next tier.
Get to bourbon, like get to like Elijah Craig bourbon or something like that.
Maker's Mark, maybe.
Maker's Mark, Bullet.
Bullet is really good. Yeah, that's like it's like comparable to Jameson, I would say.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Before we get
drinking, Dev?
I just have water. Sorry, just water today.
He comes at me all hard, but he's over here drinking.
I mean, I was just asking a question.
That's because Dev's being low key about it, not being like, you know what, guys, I'm trying to better myself, and I don't really drink like that. Shomik, you can ramble on about whiskey and the fact that you poison your body on a Thursday night doing DJ Sports Pod.
Yeah. I'm not trying to act like I'm keeping a sober lifestyle, because I'm definitely not, especially in the COVID era. I don't want the listeners to think that.
We're all double dosed, so get your second dose, guys. To all the loyal DJ Sports Pod listeners,
we are a very pro-vaccination podcast, so please.
Sure.
You guys put out like the iPhone message statement on Twitter or social media. We stand with the vaccines. we
Hashtag wear your mask. Oh man. Okay, so before this goes off the rails even more, before we get into the Lakers Warriors game itself, I wanted to just ask you guys, just having the playing games and like just a little tournament, like is it a good idea, bad idea? Like what do you guys think? And like do you want this to continue in the future?
Well, as a fan, I definitely would say it's a great thing, just because we get games like we saw last night, but you're looking at like from the players' perspective, they were only like mad about it if they were the 6th or 7th seed. They weren't like talking bad about it like earlier in the season. So I think a lot of people who are hating on it are probably the fans of the teams that are in the play-in that had to play this extra game, especially if they're a 7 or 8 seed.
Shomik?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Bobby said there, that's correct. Like nobody wants to see their team booted from the playoffs for after a whole season and after kind of comfortably getting to the 7th seed or kind of being in that range. And the Lakers were hurt. And, they definitely would have been in the top 4 seeds if they didn't get hurt. So it's if the Lakers did end up losing twice, like full disclosure, I would have been extremely happy, but but I think for just in fairness, it wouldn't have been that nice to see because they got hurt, and so that's why they were in the seventh place to begin with. But I will say, like, it's probably good for the game. It's good for ratings. It's good for entertainment. Even if the refs were a shit show yesterday, it was an amazing basketball game and a great spectacle, and you got to see LeBron and Curry go head to head in a kind of winner go home, not winner go home, but winner, almost go home type of situation right at the cusp of the playoffs. It's really good. And it makes up revenue wise for all these like tanking teams that are, just losing revenue on wasted games. Basically, like, it's good for the league. They're going to recoup all their pandemic losses. And it's good for another reason too. But what do you think about that, Dev?
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of like a little tournament, and I've been on record saying that I honestly think the season should be shortened even further. You know, I think the regular season product has decreased so much recently. You have players sitting out constantly. Like there people don't really play defense as much as maybe a couple of years ago. And like the injuries, I think the most important thing is like you have key players getting hurt constantly. You had so many stars that miss games. And like you just cut it down to like 60 games, 66 games. We know who the best teams are already, right? Coming to the season, I don't think it's a shock that like we saw Philadelphia and the Nets, the top of the East. I like you could say Utah and Phoenix are a surprise, but I mean we don't need 82 games to show who's the best team in the regular season, and we have a 4 round tournament in the playoffs to decide the winner. So my opinion is that I mean I do like the tournament. It adds a little pressure, like we saw uh, towards the end of the regular season, and you have these teams fighting for something, and I think the league itself really lucked out that we had a LeBron versus Steph game in the first year of the play-in. That'll definitely be a a reason that they can just be like, look at that game. It was incredible. They're gonna hang their hat on that. So, yeah, I'd be down to see this continue because I think the season stuff needs some change, and there's nothing wrong with like adding something different to keep things fresh.
And another way is that people will say that it's bad for the regular season because it devalues the regular season and brings it all to one game, but it's actually really good for the regular season because Utah and Phoenix now are rewarded for trying hard all season and having a consistent season all the way through, and they get that reward in the sense that they're not the Lakers. They're not having to play an extra game, a very stressful extra game to try to make the playoffs. So the Lakers, theoretically, we have Brooklyn. Brooklyn's the first seed because they played amazing basketball through certain stretches, but they've pretty much spent the entire season just disrespecting the game of basketball. Kyrie's been on PTO and
Philadelphia's a first seed. Sorry.
oh, sorry, yeah, Brooklyn's that's right. Yeah, thank you. But the point stands. I think Kyrie's been out for a long time, and Harden's been out for a long time. If that translated to them being, if they're in the West, that probably wouldn't have flown as easily. And if that translated them being in and around the orbit of the play-in, it would mean more, and it would mean that you have to keep trying in the regular season and you can't just coast. It's also good because the Wizards made the play-in, and we got to see one more game ostensibly of Westbrook and Beal, but Beal obviously wasn't himself. He was limping the whole time. But the fact that we got to see them, it really was because of the play-in that they tried so hard in the second half of the season after having such a bad first half of the season. They wouldn't have made such a push if they didn't know that they could at least get the 10th seed and still have a shot, like still have that buffer to potentially get into the playoffs with. I think that does a lot for teams not to just shut down their stars and throw in the towel if tanking's not an option. Like Minnesota, for instance, they really don't want to tank while they have Cat on contract. So if they want to retain Towns, then it's probably in their best interest to start competing and trying to win and get themselves in the rhythm of winning. So if they'd gotten to the 10th seed, it would have been a great thing to take like a broken season and turn that into something positive.
Yeah, I think the Wizards' point is great too, because they started off the season pretty terribly, but they turned it on, towards the end of the season, and managed to get finished 8th place. So that's definitely a scenario where it worked out.
Yeah, and I think that like overall like I've said this to you guys for years, that the NBA is kind of like just boring, and that it directs all of the focus toward the playoffs and the finals. Like the regular season's bloated and long, and there's like 12 games at a time where no one gives a shit about what's actually happening on the court. And then you get to the playoffs, and even the first round for like the best teams is kind of a formality. And then there's like 6 weeks in May and June where everybody's kind of tuned in and everybody's having a good time. And that kind of sucks because, in college football, you have big rivalry games every week. And in the NFL, you have big games throughout the week, throughout the season. And in soccer, you have like all these things to play for and all these really strong rivalries and different levels of competition, to try to not get relegated and all that stuff. So I think in basketball, it's good to have something else that people care about besides like just like the joy of winning that game and making it to the playoffs is a burst of positivity for a team and its fans, even if they don't end up winning the championship. It's imperfect because when these teams that escape the play-in end up getting just blown out of the first round, it won't be that fun. But like it wasn't for Portland last year. But I think in general, it's fine.
And if you want to even look at last year, like the fact that Portland was able to come in and like the way that they did it, it kind of put Dame on like a world stage. So like that's just another example of how like the playing, facilitated something great. Um, I think they're gonna keep moving on with this. There is like hate here and there, but I think overall the reaction is pretty good for the playing.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, we had LeBron voices concerns, but maybe he'll change his tune after last night. But yeah, let's talk about yesterday. It was a great game. Lakers won 103 to 100 on a last second shot by LeBron. The Lakers won, but they started off the game really slow, really lethargic. It seemed like the Warriors wanted it way more than they did. But yeah, Shomik, just how did you feel like when you saw the Warriors come out the gates like they did? And Steph only had, I believe, was it 12 points at halftime? So it was like a team effort.
Yeah, I think like they say pound for pound, some little guy is one of the, like they'll say pound for pound, Allen Iverson is one of the best players ever. Pound for pound is one of the better fighters ever. I think player for player, just like with the actual talent on paper they had, that was some of the best team defense I've ever seen. Like that was incredible. They were rotating to every potential shooter for the Lakers. They were being able to double LeBron or double Anthony Davis and kind of recover really quickly and leave the Lakers with like a dwindling shot clock and nowhere to go. And Draymond's incredible. Draymond's a genius. Like Draymond will guard the guy who starts the pick and roll, and then he'll guard the roll man. Then he'll sprint out to guard the shooter they kick it out to. He just like he will contest your shot and pick off your pass in like in the same split second, basically. So it was just beautiful to watch, like how well they played as a team. And that was, if you ever kind of question people love to take like the Warriors and make them just the sum of their parts, being like, oh, Curry's a great shooter and Clay's a great shooter and Draymond's a great defender. Like these are always really well coached teams, and these are always like teams that have like totally bought in, and everyone's playing really solid defense, and everyone's communicating and rotating. So it's like it was just another example of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your point about that is actually spot on about the coaches. They both of these teams are just so well coached, and you could see that with every player. So yeah, I think that's a good point. I also think that like the fact that at halftime, me and Dev like a week ago, I don't know when we did our last pod, but we were talking about the concerns with the Lakers, And at halftime, I was voicing all those concerns. I was so upset with the Lakers, and I was thinking about how LeBron was out with Drake drinking tequila, and AD was up till 2 a.m. playing Modern Warfare with Swag on Phase. So once I heard all these news, I was like, man, what are we doing? We're not focused at all. And the Warriors are completely focused. They're all dialed in. So I honestly didn't see the comeback coming, and it just it just proves to the greatness of LeBron and AD just to will that. It wasn't pretty, and it was kind of maybe a little lucky too, but they figured out a way to get the dub, and just love to see that. So
Yeah, I think we were talking at halftime. Schroeder, AD, and LeBron combined were 4 for 28, which was their worst half of the season, any half. So,
terrible.
I think part of us also knew that it was going to continue. Like shots were gonna fall at some point. But I think part of the reason why the Warriors came out so hot was this is a team that's they've been bouncing around from like eighth place to 10th place all season, right? And like towards the end of the season, I think they were already in playoff mode for the last couple of weeks because they had a lot to fight for, and so they came out a team that was more hungry, that was ready to play, and the Lakers came out like a team where they weren't really worried about their playoff position. And that's what it showed in the first half.
Yeah.
But I thought, like, let's switch to the third quarter. I thought it was really interesting that AD said that Jordan Poole said something to him, and then Juan Toscano Anderson like said something to LeBron, and I guess that kind of woke both of them up. I don't know how accurate that is.
Can you say those names again, Dad, so people can know?
Jordan Poole and Juan Toscano Anderson.
Jesus,
Yeah,
That guy was looking like Andre Iguodala, to be honest. The way that he was guarding LeBron, and that's he's considered a no-namer in the league right now.
Yeah, Juan Toscano Anderson was super complete yesterday. But yeah, man, I saw that they said something like that, like and then I took it personal meme with Jordan.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, their youth caught up to them in the third quarter. I mean, the Lakers played better. They played better in that Schroeder kind of got his act together, and like Bob's saying, he kind of got like woke up and got into playoff mode a lot more. And they'd been kicking out to KCP, and he was shooting decently, making his shots in the corner, but not really. Kuzma was not really making his shots. Caruso was doing all right, doing decent. They had to bring in Wes Matthews and play Wes Matthews a ton of second half minutes to just continue getting viable looks when on kickouts. But yeah, I think it was really the Warriors' youth catching up to them. There was a lot of turnovers. There are a lot of those beautiful interior passes that Steve Kerr teaches them to make, and then they weren't able to make those because the Lakers are too physical. And that's how the Cavs. That's how LeBron's teams have always taken on like the Warriors teams. It was kind of a throwback to like the old days where they just get really physical on players swinging to the other side off screens, and they get really handsy on these off ball screens. And credit to them, they also just have great hands and pick off like these entry passes. And by like the end of the third, I didn't trust anybody to be making an entry pass. I didn't trust anybody to be passing anywhere but like another guy on the perimeter because they were so bad. By that point, they really just should have had Curry bring up the ball and have him run pick and roll.
Yeah, I think to your point about how just how their youth caught up to him. I think the energy that Draymond brought, that really sparked all that energy and that tough defense. I think in the second half it kind of it got like unraveled almost. Like Draymond started making dumb plays. The turnovers happened, and you saw them like unraveling like before you. So yeah, it was.
You know who you need in that situation when the team's unraveling? You need to just be consistent and make shots. And when the ball's in his hand, you feel safe. Huh?
Klay Thompson.
Klay Thompson. There, exactly. And like I saw his beautiful face on the sidelines, and like I just missed that man. Like I actually felt yearning for him. I wanted him to I really wanted him out there.
Shomik, I wanted to ask you, since he's a former Piston, about Andre Drummond. So he played 17 minutes, had 4 points, 7 rebounds. It seems like he hasn't really found his footing with this Laker team. Do you have any thoughts on like what's wrong and like what's next for for him because I don't know, if he's gonna be re-signed or if he's gonna have to find another team.
I'm surprised we haven't talked more about Andre in the group text because he's like persona non grata with the Lakers right now, him and Schroeder. But Schroeder at least has some more, like, he did some more at the beginning of the season and in his career to fall back on. But yeah, I'm surprised you guys aren't trashing on him more because he's been so bad. Like he's you can't really have him on the floor. It's just the same. It's really the same problems as he had in Cleveland and Detroit, where he's athletic and he's big and he can go up and get rebounds. He can pull down rebounds really consistently, but he's out of position a lot. He gets lost on defense. He can't really follow a driving player. He can't really like laterally shift over when that driving player like kind of slides it to a big. He'll have like a big block once a game, and for a second you think he's like a defensive stopper. He had a big block yesterday. I forgot who he blocked, but then like possession to possession, he's such a negative on defense, and he has no offense. Like he has no footwork. He has no touch. He's got no court vision. And look, like I have always been, I'm always the kind of, I always try to say, like, I always try to root for players to succeed and just feel disappointed when they don't. Like, I fucking hate this culture of, oh, this guy's trash. This guy's awful. Fuck this guy. Let's get him off the team. You know, I kind of hate that culture, no matter no matter which fan it is. But there were times when he was on the Pistons and we'd be losing games and losing games we should be winning. And we have the talent to win games and we weren't winning because we didn't have a floor leader who wasn't stepping up. And then you'd see his Instagram later and he'd be shooting like these like funny kind of corny videos, like these corny little music videos. He was on Instagram Live, just kicking it with people till late. And yeah, players are human. They should be doing what they got to do. But I just don't believe he's that focused. And it's hard. I don't want to be all Skip Bayless about it. It just doesn't seem like his focus is there, you know?
I mean,
Yeah,
tough
I
words,
agree.
but Schroeder has also hasn't shown me that he deserves the fat contract that he's looking for. I think the playoffs will tell his future with the Lakers, but we also have to pay Caruso, and Caruso I think was huge yesterday. And I feel like he does the intangibles and pick things up, but you know, I'm really curious to see what the Lakers are gonna do with Dennis. Bob, like, what do you think about Schroeder right now? Like, is it like kind of just like a wait and see approach for these playoffs?
Well, in terms of his contract, yeah, it's it's really based off like these next couple weeks to see what type of contract he gets from the Lakers. But you know, my opinion on him is that he's a good player, but I don't think he's right for this team. I think that he just doesn't fit exactly right with LeBron and AD. I think his talents would be suited somewhere else. He's a starting point guard in the league, but I just don't think it's for the Lakers. I think Caruso or THT is kind of bred or like breeded to be like a Lakers starter just by their how they play. You know, tough guys on defense, and they don't turn over the ball too much. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see how he plays, but he's gonna have to. I think he's gonna have a really big playoffs for us to offer him a contract.
Mm-hmm.
But
And he wants a whole bunch of money, right?
He
He's
wants a
holding
big
out.
deal, yeah.
yeah,
It's insane that he wants that much money, but like while playing for the Lakers, while playing for like a championship contender, like that's why you go to the Lakers and be a role player for them, because you don't care about the money, you don't care about getting the bag, and you just want to like be a cog. If the
Mhm.
the Lakers wouldn't be the Lakers if they were giving Schroeder 90 million,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. And I also think about what you said about Draymond is spot on. So I don't think we're gonna be offering him a contract either. Uh, I I don't know exactly who's available in free agency this year, but I don't think we'll be offering either of these guys, a major contract or even in Schroeder's situation like a middle tier contract. I don't think that's coming from the Lakers.
I think it's a classic case of Schroeder being really talented, more talented than other players like Rondo, but the Lakers were way better with Rondo because he's just a more calming presence. He knows what he's doing with the ball. He facilitates. And you need a floor general. Look, when LeBron's not on the floor, because AD's never going to be a floor general. That's just not who he is. I think they should have pulled off the Kyle Lowry trade. I'm a Kyle Lowry stan, but he's my favorite player. But I think he would have been amazing for this team. I think he does a little bit of everything, and he's not talented like Schroeder. Like, no, I won't go so far as to say that. I think he's way better than Schroeder. And I think prime Rondo was too. But I think Schroeder kind of on paper is younger and more spry and like faster and at this stage in Lowry's career and Rondo's career, they probably don't have the same durability that Schroeder has, but like it's just a beautiful case of intangibles where I would rather, if I were a Lakers fan, I would want either of those guys on this team way before somebody like Schroeder right now.
The only thing with me with that Kyle Lowry trade was they were asking for
a lot.
Yeah, they're asking for THT and Kuzma. So those.
I mean, THT can be the guy that we're talking about because he's got such a great head on his shoulders and he's such a good decision maker. He's just
old.
Yeah, exactly. He needs like 3 more years. He'll be that guy for you guys.
Yeah, and like you said, he's so smart already. So it's gonna be crazy to see how good he can get.
Man, for sure.
Before we move on, Shomik, I wanted to ask you regarding the refs. Like, so it was kind of a little controversial about what happened. Some people were saying the refs were giving too many calls to Lakers towards the end of the game. LeBron did have some dramatics, according to some people asked. But like, just looking at it from a neutral perspective, what did you think?
Okay, so I'm going to be a little bit more broad about this. And we can talk about the actual calls and what the actual calls were. But I'm going to start off by being broad. I think that there is this really scary stigma coming into the NBA that we need to stop right as we're starting to talk about it, where in real life, if you say things like, oh, social media is really harmful and the internet's really harmful and you shouldn't be on your phone all the time, there's like this like kind of like uncoolness that's coming about like in response to that. Like they think it's kind of corny thing to say, to be like, oh yeah, these kids their brains are rotting being on social media all the time, and it's like, okay, you're an old man yelling at a cloud, and there's that kind of backlash that forms when you call something out too much and you just like you're willing to die on that hill. But I will say that after last night, I've never been so afraid that flopping will just never be fixed, and it'll be determining big games for years to come. Because I'm sorry, the Wes Matthews flop off of Draymond, the AD flops, and I'm sorry, listen, I sound like a hater when I say this, and that's the problem. It's like when somebody sounds really old when they criticize TikTok, but I sound like a hater when I say this. But Anthony Davis's most potent skill that he brings to a late game situation is his ability to flop off of a screen. It's just like dynamite how many times he gets that call, and we're just not doing anything about it. The fines don't matter. Like we invented replay, but replay is not there to fix it. Just it kills me. A little part of me dies watching, and a little part of me dies watching these games with non-basketball fans and having to explain, oh yeah, like they're just pretending they got fouled, and that's okay.
Can I respond to that, Dev?
Of course.
Here we go.
Yeah. So your point is, I think is valid. That it is something that needs to be addressed like really harshly, especially in the NBA. But like even on a more general term, I think like if you look at soccer, like flopping is like like part of every game, and it's getting to the point where it's getting a little ridiculous there too. But if you just look at the way that, I don't know, sports is kind of heading, it's everything gets looked at like with such a fine, like, I don't know how to really explain this, but
like a spotlight.
Yeah, fine spotlight. So players can emphasize everything for fouls. So it's players like realizing how like the sport is evolving and taking advantage of that. So in that way, I'm not too upset with it. I used to extremely hate when James Harden would get all those fake fouls, and it seems like it ruins the game. Same thing with Trae Young. But I think if there is a way that we could regulate the refs and have them like understand that they need to control the game. They need to stop it. And if there was just some way we could, have like a regulatory like entity that just focuses on the refs, I think that would help a lot. And I honestly think it's needed because they're just unraveling, like I said earlier.
And the big problem, that's so true, exactly what you said, that we need like an oversight committee that like actually tracks games and actually holds refs accountable, which you just don't have. You have the last 2 minutes reports and they're awful, and people don't even read them. They're not publicized anywhere.
Yeah.
The big problem that like what's so scary about this problem is that they do and don't ruin games, right? Like this game is going to be remembered forever as a classic, forever, because of what happened immediately after Draymond gets called for a bullshit illegal screen with under 2 minutes to go and gives the Lakers the ball back. And we're all going to remember what happened 1 minute later. Just like in 2014, Vince Carter, I think it was Vince Carter, somebody in the Mavericks flopped just so brazenly, so egregiously, and they got the ball back. We remember that game for Vince Carter hitting the corner three at the buzzer to win that game, and they wouldn't have had the ball if they hadn't flopped on it and got an offensive foul off the Spurs. Like that's the real problem. Like this is a huge win for the NBA yesterday, but like in another sport, I feel like if this happened in football, we'd all be talking about how bad the officiating is. Like we'd all look at it through a negative lens. And in basketball, like sometimes the problems just aren't given enough scrutiny,
Yeah.
You say the refs are more or less worse than in football and NFL? Because we hate on the officiating in the NFL just as much. So
I feel like
Yeah.
anything bad in the NFL, everybody talks about all the time, and everything bad in the NBA. I think people want to love the NBA because they love basketball so much that and they like it's just such a fun sport to root for as just an entertainment product that we like. It sucks to dwell on bad officiating, but the officiating was awful. It was really, really bad. And you guys were talking about in the group text, the Lakers weren't getting any calls at the rim in the first half either. Like it's just inconsistent the entire way through. Rules will just change, and the refs will just swallow their whistles at the end of the game, and it'll be okay. And it's a real problem, man.
Yeah. And just to add, flopping, I think we just need like serious punishments for when it does happen, because I know in soccer they give out yellow cards when it's like really egregious. And I think refs just need to do a better job. Like if they have to like look at it, an instant replay through the monitors, then just you know take a look and just deal out a punishment. I think that's gonna be the only way. Or like I don't know what else they would do to really stop this.
I don't know if you remember in the bubble last year, but at the game 7 of the first round between OKC and Houston, Chris Paul and James Harden, it's the final minute of play. Everything's at stake. Both these teams are trying to advance. They literally flopped off each other, and I can't remember who had the ball, but they ran kind of vaguely into each other, and they both flopped. And it was so dangerous because it was a total non-call, and it's like I forget who had the ball, but it's like a massive turnover if they, and then it became like one of those kind of scrums on the ground where everybody's trying to like get the ball. It's so, when you don't call it makes everything look so foolish. Like the game looks really bad and it just like it would never work, and like it would never work in a pickup game. It's like it's not the spirit of basketball. If I tried to get Bobby on a charge, it would just be
you get laughed off the court for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think I mean it's a great point right there.
Yeah, they're really, like you said, they're losing their like the real spirit of basketball. The hustle, the grind, all that kind of lost. So, but like I said earlier, I'm all for like them trying to move the game forward and find different ways to exploit the game, I guess. But when it gets that egregious, it's hard to watch, like you said.
I think it's also just tough to see this stuff in real time, because people were saying AD was holding Steph on the last play, because you kind of didn't even see it happen. Steph went up and the ball kind of slipped out of his hands, but AD had his hands up, and people were saying that he was holding him. I think when it was actually looked at later online, people saw that AD actually didn't have his hands on him, but there was this whole section of the viewership that was like freaking out that they thought Steph got held. There's also that play where Jeff Van Gundy said Steph kicked out his legs to get the shooting foul call on his way down. And then you look at the replay and Steph completely, like, Steph jumps up and down in the same spot and his legs don't move at all. And it's just really hard to see. Your eyes just can't see the truth in real time, you know?
Yeah, and I think, like, social media has become part of it has become so toxic that people have, like, they're kind of like their own bases. Like, you're on one side and so people on the other side, and they kind of just want to see what they want to see, and they're just like believe, like, oh yeah, of course AD was holding him, like, of course the Lakers, they get every call, like, so. And on the other side, like, we were complaining about fouls in the first half, so it's just kind of a mess all around.
Yeah, and it's funny because social media, the other side of it is you do have the receipts. Like, you can pull up a 10-second streamable clip and now we know, whereas in the past you'd have to wait on the Sports Center package to try to get a good look at that foul. Yeah, now we have the receipts, but like you say, Dev, it's a mess. Like, it's just people, it's like you're at a party and you're trying to find like your friend, it's just gross,
That's all. Yeah, no one wants to deal with it.
stumbling around in the dark all the time.
So let's stay with the Western Conference. We have the Grizzlies and the Warriors playing tomorrow in a playing game, and the winner plays Utah, who's the first seed in the West. So yeah, let's just make some picks. And you guys tell me who you think's gonna win and why. I think the Grizzlies and the Warriors, they play each other on the last game of the season to decide who is going to be the 8th seed and play the Lakers. So I'm really interested for this matchup. Two pretty evenly matched teams. I know the Warriors are favored by a little, but who do you guys like in this one?
I'll go first. I think the Warriors that pull it out. They're going to have a bad taste in their mouth after what happened last game, and the leaders are definitely going to home in on that and get their team ready to go. Steph and Draymond are going to come out strong again. I think they'll come out and beat Memphis, even with Jonas playing the way he is, the 2020 monster.
Yeah, I think Golden State will wrap it up. I think the real problem with Memphis is, and like, I haven't seen that many Memphis games this season, but I just hope, like, this guy Taylor Jenkins seems like a good coach. It seems like everybody likes him, but there are a lot of Scott Brooks type of flashbacks I was seeing in the San Antonio game where Ja either gets a pick and roll and just tries to get in the lane, or Dylan Brooks just goes like full Lou Williams and just gets tunnel vision, finds a way to get a shot off, or JV gets the ball in the post and it's like, and then you step into a time machine and it's like 2008 and it's JV in the post, backing somebody down, slowly turning around, feet not leaving the floor as he gets a hook shot up. Like, it's like you don't see that kind of play anymore. And there's no like those three scenarios don't have any overlap at all. So I think Golden State, if they execute, will take care of business pretty quickly because they're just more of a team, and they're a better team. But Memphis is so talented. Like, they have so much talent. They just need to mature into looking like an actual basketball team, because it looks like it's like three different teams depending on who has the ball.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's no continuity with that team right now. It's very segmented, like you said. But I do see a situation where Jonas does control the clock and slows down the game, but it's going to be on the bigs of the front line of the Warriors. If they come out the way they played against the Lakers, they'll definitely win the game. But Memphis does have a all-star in Jonas, and if they come out just lacking a little bit, Jonas will take advantage.
Yeah, and I think the guy. I mean, I think that's a great point, because I think Memphis can score consistently through JV, but I think Golden State, their second most reliable scorer is probably Wiggins, and just his face down at the mid range, just kind of like just like a DeRozan type of, like a more physical DeRozan type of skill set, basically. And I think that's not probably good enough if everybody's super flat to win a game. And that's probably why they like that's a big reason why they've lost so many games. So I think it's winnable for Memphis. I don't think, but I think if Golden State hits its shots, then like I don't think Memphis can beat him.
So wait, I have one question about that. Who deserves the credit for the revival of A. Wiggins? Because that man is not the same guy from 12 months ago. And I've seen the videos of Draymond in his ear and Steph talking to him. This guy he had a Penny Hardaway step back last night, and I was taken back. I have never seen that from that guy. So who do you guys think really is the reason behind it?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I think you have to give credit to the coaches, Steve Kerr and all the assistants. I'm sure like they've been working on his game over the past year. And like his shot looks completely different, and he just like seems like he has a whole new set of tools in his bag. Like we saw, like you mentioned the step back. He had the athleticism. He's long, can get to the basket pretty quickly, but he just maybe he hadn't put it together as a top three pick that he was. I think he was a top three pick, right? So it's nice to
Just
see
the
him
first overall pick, yeah.
first overall pick. Yeah, so nice to see him. Have a nice year because I'm personally someone who was a fan of him in college and have been rooting for him. So yeah, it's good to see for sure. What about you, Shomik?
I think the big change with him is he's stronger and he doesn't start with the ball on the perimeter anymore. They don't make him play like a shooting guard, and they kind of make him play like a swing man. But they also let him play his game where he gets a lot of mid rangers and he gets a lot of floaters after taking somebody off the dribble. So that if that's his game, I think Steve Kerr's like kind of been like, okay, you do that, but you have to get stronger and you can't play the perimeter anymore. You have to play the mid range and just like kind of work the elbow and work the high post. And I think that's really good for him. There were some like in the first half, there were a couple minutes there where I won't like again, I'm an unbiased, objective, neutral basketball fan for sure, but there are definitely moments where I was shouting Andrew Wiggins revenge game at the top of my lungs because he was he was guarding, he got a few blocks. I think he got a block on LeBron, and he was taking LeBron off the dribble and getting some shots, and he remembered. I was like, he remembers that LeBron traded him for Kevin Love after in 2014. And that was the revenge game that wasn't. It really looked like that for a couple minutes.
That's a nice callback, Shelwick. So let's move.
I'm always just looking for LeBron to be vanquished by somebody from his past.
So you guys both picked the Warriors. They would play Utah in the first round. Let's assume the Warriors are going to win tomorrow. Do you guys pick the Warriors to pull off an upset, or do you think Utah's going to take care of business?
I think Utah handles business, but it's gonna be an extended series for sure. I'll say Jazz in 6. Is Mitchell healthy?
That's
Yeah,
the thing, right?
that's the question. Yeah.
Yeah, he's coming. He sprained his ankle in mid-April, and he's coming back now after a month. I'm just really thankful they're not playing the Lakers in the first round. I think it'd be a lot scarier for a team with Mitchell not being 100% to come back against them. I think their defense is good enough. They just have long guys. They have long players who can match up against the Warriors really easily and really expose just how little height the Warriors are, like just how few bigs they have, like true bigs. Like their one true big is Kevon Looney, and then you have to go to Wiseman basically, right? In terms of their centers, and then Oubre is hurt, so that's
Yeah.
that's a big deal too.
Wiseman actually he's been out for the year.
Oh, right, Wiseman.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but like before that, Wiseman was playing a lot of minutes at that center
Mhm.
position. So I think Utah will have it figured out. But yeah, like Bobby said, Mitchell's health is pretty much everything when it comes to their offense. Like Jordan Clarkson didn't have as good of a second half of the season as he did the first half, and Mitchell's pretty key if they're going to do anything in the playoffs.
So I just looked it up, and he should be back for the opener, their game one. So I think the question is just going to be how healthy is he going to be, but he'll be out there. And yeah, I agree with Bob. I would say Utah in 6 as well. They have the home court advantage. They have one of the best defenses in the league, and I think over a series they're just going to wear down Steph and the rest of the team. So yeah, I'll take Utah in 6 as well. Shomik, do you have a pick for us?
Oh, I didn't know that. I would probably go with Utah in 6 as well. Honestly,
Mhm.
I think that's solid. I think Steph will definitely win them 2 games, but it's hard though. It's hard to ever pick against Steph or LeBron. It's really hard to pick against either of those two. It's just I just I was telling my friends I can't like I just whenever I try to think about LeBron losing in the first round, my brain just melts. Like it's just like you can't actually imagine that happening. I just won't believe it until I see it. When we go to get to that series, I'll probably pick the Suns, but I mean, I think same with Steph. I think it's really hard to bet against him just shooting the lights out and doing what he always does and winning. But yeah, Utah in 6 sounds right.
Yeah, thanks, Shomik, because that's a great segue. The next series is the Suns and the Lakers. Suns are the 2nd seed, Lakers are the 7th seed. And that series starts on Sunday, game 1. Chris Paul against his good friend LeBron James, which should be a fun one. James Jones was also, of course, on that Cavs team, and he's been a part of this great Suns season. But yeah, Bob, I'm gonna swing it to you. I think I know you're going this way, but what do you got to say for us?
I want to be biased and say Lakers in 5.
Lakers in 5. Okay.
Wow.
But I see this. Ah, man, I don't know. I have the same worries as I did for last year for the Blazers, just because they were playing so well, and I just didn't see how we were going to be able to stop Damian Lillard, and I don't see us being able to guard Chris Paul, but the Lakers show that they adjust really well. So I'm not going to say Lakers in 5. I'm going to say Lakers in 6. I can't get past the bias. It's so deeply ingrained in me.
I'm not gonna do a pick 'em because I'm not gonna bet on things that I don't want to see happen. Like why would I do that? Why would I conflict my interests that way?
Yeah.
I don't think I never do well with the bracket stuff because when we get to the East, I'm just not gonna pick Brooklyn. Like
Yeah.
it's just you can't.
My brain is looking for ways for them to lose.
I was gonna say I've actually been writing down all of our picks. So show me, but if you want to abstain from this one, that's fine.
I mean, you can write down my picks. I'll give you my. Well, I really think Phoenix has a chance to win the series. I do. But I do think that if it's Chris Paul being Chris Paul and being 2018 Rockets versus Warriors, Chris Paul playing just whenever Harden's not on the floor, just completely dominating the game. The Suns will already have lost. I don't think they can win that way. I don't think they can beat the Lakers in 7 games that way. This is going to be the series we remember if Booker ends up having a historic career, if he ends up being like I can't think of an analogy for him, but if he ends up being a player we remember from this generation, which we're not really sure right now if we will, we could end up being like a Jerry Stackhouse, who knows? But if
Damn,
he's already better than Jerry Stackhouse. But, Jerry Stackhouse had a 29 point. He averaged 29 points per game on 40% shooting one season.
maybe like a Grant Hill, possibly.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, Grant Hill was expected to be just a first ballot Hall of Famer, like world beater, like one of the he was expected to peak as one of the best players in the league. Whatever happens with Booker, I think this is going to be like a great first look at him in an important series, and whether he steps up and he plays like a top 10 player, like somebody who can take his team into his hands and take his destiny into his hands and play really well, or if he's going to be a Paul George player, no disrespect to Paul George, or like Klay Thompson, somebody in that second tier of players that would make a great kind of second banana on a championship team, but or an AD, not AD talent wise is in the top tier. But let me not say something I'm gonna have to
Yeah,
take.
no, I think I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Somebody who like right now Booker is leaning on Chris Paul. It's Chris Paul's team, and Booker is getting fed the ball. He's scoring off the dribble. When he does create his own shot, he's pretty inconsistent this season. So I think if he can create his own shot and if he can be the focal point, if he can play how Tatum did in the play-in the other day against Washington, basically, I think Phoenix has this series. I think they're going to win in 6, and I'll pick the Suns to beat the Lakers in 6.
All right. I love to see it. I love to see it. Personally, I think this is a really good matchup for the Lakers because aside from Ayton, they don't really have any big men to throw at AD. So I think he should have a good series. And I'm gonna go with Bob again. I'm gonna say Lakers in 6. That sounds about right. We finish it up at home in Game 6.
But to your point, Shomik, if D Book does play on that type of elite one A type of level, I think that's going to spell a lot of problems for the Lakers. Just because the Suns are already deep, they have plenty of players that can hit good jumpers. They take good shots. Mikal Bridges, um, who else?
Torrey
I'm
Craig's been
Yeah,
playing.
Greg's, he's kind of inconsistent, but
Cameron Payne.
he plays great defense, can shoot the three. Yeah, Cameron Payne, revival of his career, so I think if D Book can be that guy, that just almost James Harden level type guy, then yeah, that's gonna spell trouble. That's a game 7 type of feel.
And in the playoffs, I think it just comes down to crunch time in the fourth quarter. Like, do you have stars on your team that can give you those clutch buckets? And that's like D Book falls under that category for sure.
Matchup wise, though, I mean, they'll probably put LeBron on him in the fourth, right? They'll probably put LeBron on him and then put KCP on Chris Paul. So it's
maybe Caruso as well. Caruso on Chris Paul or Booker. I think he might have to guard both of them, to be honest.
when he's on the floor, yeah.
KCP underrated how long he is, so I think he might. You're right, Shem. I think he might be on Book, and Caruso and Schroeder will switch off for CP3. That's just my thinking towards it.
Yeah, those aren't favorable matchups for Phoenix, but it is. The Lakers looked really beatable yesterday too. At the same time, it's really hard to say. Picking teams to win, picking who's going to win is really hard. I don't think that should play a huge deal in analysis because it's like we don't know. That's why we watch.
Yeah.
This year's playoffs, like in the first round, I haven't really had to think so hard on a first round playoff series like this, but. Yeah, like Dev said, it's gonna come down to the big shots at the end. If D Book is up for those moments, I think the Suns might. I'm not gonna say it, but it's gonna be in a Game 7 situation.
I sent the bracket if you guys saw into our group message, kind of like a pick'em challenge thing, and yeah, this first round, I feel like there's just so many matchups where it really feels like a coin toss.
I feel like if you put up like a DJ Sports extended universe experts pick, it'd just be like a bunch of Lakers logos just down the line, and then my little VHX with the basketball on fire.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like this next series, the Nuggets and the Blazers, I can see either team winning this one. Obviously with Jamal Murray, it'd be a different story. Nuggets would be favorites, but Dame and CJ, they've been playing really well. Blazers have a Nurkic back, and since you guys went first, I'll go first with this one. Yeah, like I said, this one's tough. I think I'm gonna go Blazers in 7, to be honest. I just think they have that firepower. Nurkic, he's really the X factor for me. Gary Trent too was a huge pickup for the Blazers. I think he's gonna have some clutch 3-pointers. And yeah, I'm gonna go Blazers in 7.
Wait, no, don't they have Norman Powell now?
Oh, sorry, they traded Gary Trent, right? And they got Norman Powell.
Yeah,
They do, yeah.
Okay,
But
yeah,
Norm Powell is going to be huge for them too,
yeah,
for sure.
Norman Powell.
he's a great player for them.
Sorry, that's
Yeah,
not
I mean, I it's just insanely sad that these two teams have to play each other in the first round.
Mhm.
It's not fair that one of these teams has to go home after one round. It's just cruel, man. But I just think Denver's so good right now. They were so good after Murray's injury. They not that they played better without him, but MPJ being a primary scoring option is just this team is just loaded at times. Like they have so much firepower to throw at any team. They're so balanced. AG kind of fills in the gaps and whatever they need accomplished defensively or offensively in possession to possession situation. I think with Gary Harris having injuries and Murray being out, I think they're probably not going to go far. And I actually kind of, if I want to see a team take out one of the super teams, I actually would want Denver to lose early and kind of have Portland go forward without them and be the ones to challenge teams down the line. But I think Portland's lack of defense is just going to be such a problem. It still is such a problem. Every time I watch those guys play, man, it is just sad how easily teams can get to the rim against them. How bad Covington is in a when teams are running downhill against him. He's just he's like they're a very kind of like try to sneak a steal type of team and not a try to force a bad shot type of team. And so I think and just in terms of the intangibles, Jokic probably does remember in 2019 that they let that one get away. They let the Blazers slip by them. I thought Denver definitely should have won that series. And I thought Denver could have put up a way better fight against Golden State. That Warriors team would have beaten anybody in the West, but I thought they could have put up a better fight against Golden State in those West Finals. So I think Denver takes it because Jokic will be a man on a mission, and they just have a more balanced lineup.
Yeah.
You got Nuggets in how many games, Shomik?
Oh shoot, let's go 6.
Bob?
Okay. I'm still deciding. I think I'm trying to imagine how this series will play out, and what comes to my mind is just Jokic, kind of like in soccer when they say have a master class. I think he's just going to facilitate the whole offense and get other guys involved, guys like AG and you said Gary Harris is hurt.
Jamal Murray.
Jamal Murray's out
yeah,
for sure, but Gary Harris. Let me do a quick Google. I don't know if he's out
Okay.
for the playoffs, but he's been hurt off and on quite a bit.
But yeah, like other guys like MPJ who's starting to
Gary Harris is on the Magic. they traded him.
That's why we haven't seen him all season.
So we're gonna put this shit online, huh? Bobby, now you have to confuse.
That's why my brain was blanking on Gary Harris on the Nuggets. It's because not.
I'm saying now it's now your turn to think that there's a player on a team who actually is no longer on that team. Gary Harris went to the Magic in the AG trade. Yeah. But I don't know. Continue on the conversation.
No, yeah, I was just thinking that the way that Denver plays, I think they're going to control the clock really well and kind of hold Damian and CJ at bay. So I'm gonna go with Nuggets in 5.
Nuggets in 5. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you guys make up a lot of good points, and honestly, makes me kind of second guess my pick. But
yeah, and like what Shomik said is I haven't seen the Blazers play defense my whole life.
Yeah.
Hey man, I thought Gary Harris was on the team until that's how much my opinion invested.
Next, the last matchup in the West is a fun one. It's a rematch of last year. We have the Clippers against the Dallas Mavericks.
Oh, get Shomik off the pod now. This is where his bias is going to be flooded.
100%. For the record, not a Clippers fan.
Yeah, so like I think like we mentioned, the problems with Blazers on defense, I think Mavericks have the same problem. They're not a great defensive team. Porzingis, we don't know how healthy he's going to be in this series, and I think aside from Luka, they don't really have enough firepower. And I think this Clippers team is better than last year. They seem to be playing much better basketball, and I saw somewhere that they're actually like shooting historically well too. They have I think 5 or 6 guys that are shooting above 40% from three, which is ridiculous. Um, so I think they're really poised for I hate to say it, but they're poised for a playoff run right now. And I think Rondo is going to be huge. So I'm going to say Clippers in 5.
Yeah, I think they have the best upside in the West by far right now, right? Like the least baggage, the fewest injuries, the best seeding position. Well, the best seeding position, the better seeding position than the Lakers is kind of what I should have said just now. But yeah, I think the Clippers are stacked, man. They're stacked. Batum adds something totally different to this team than they had last year. Rondo adds something totally different to the team than they had last year. Zubac is fantastic. He's extremely aggressive when he gets the ball down low. Way better finisher than Trez. No offense, guys. And
100%.
Ibaka, if he's healthy, will be freaking fantastic for them as well. Paul George is way more efficient, plays within his own means a lot more. Kawhi, I think, has been a little less aggressive this year, but I think he's picked his spots, and there have been flashes where he looks like a Kawhi that we hadn't seen since before the pandemic. So I think, yeah, I think the Clippers. I guess I'm giving away who I'm going to pick to come out of the West, no matter how this bracket sort of figures out. But I think the Clippers are going to make short work of the Mavericks this time around. I think they actually also remember the fact that series was closer than it was, and the fact that Kristaps' injury was a reason why after they lost to Denver, people said that they might have lost to Dallas. The Mavericks also beat them by 40 points in December, if you guys remember that.
Oh yeah.
So I think Luka will explode and win a game, but I'm actually going to pick the Clips in 5 for the series.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. I think I'm gonna have to agree with that. But to your point about Kawhi, do you think he's in a area in like a mindset to pop off, or do you think he's kind of, I don't know, he hasn't really gotten the chance to get his legs under him this season just because of all those injuries? I haven't been keeping that close on it. I don't know if he was really just resting or if he was actually injured. But if you can, update me on that, that'd be great.
I don't think we'll ever see 2019 Kawhi again. I think that was a one-off. I think that'll probably end up being his absolute peak kind of season of putting in a wine bottle and keeping in the cellar, like Bill Simmons says. I think Kawhi is now a kind of guy who is just lethal when the offense is clicking. And the Clippers have a really balanced offense, and so they cover a lot of Kawhi's playmaking deficiencies. He's gotten better as a playmaker, but he can't play make that easily. He's not as good of an ISO scorer as he was in 2019, where he was just scoring at will, to get the Raptors out of bad situations. But again, they're just like, if that balance holds up, if PG is still as much of an inside-outside threat as he's been, PG has been really good. He's been really efficient. Really he just looks like he's quietly had a fantastic season.
Mm-hmm.
I think and to talk about the Mavericks really quickly, I think they're solid, but like Bob said, they're just that team is they still have so many holes that they need to address. And it's kind of a situation like Harden on the Rockets for so many years, where his usage rate was through the roof and everything was running through him, but the team had a lot of flaws that they weren't really taking the steps to address. And I think Dallas has the exact same problem, where they don't have Kristaps is not an inside scorer. He's kind of a bona fide spot up shooter in a lot of offensive possessions, which is really sad to see. Like, you think Kristaps would be a little bit more of like a Swiss Army knife. He has great stats, but I think the team is really one-dimensional at times.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think Kristaps hasn't had the opportunity to really show his full game just because of his injuries.
Yeah.
And I don't know, just the way his build is, I don't know if he's ever going to be sustainable in the league. But yeah, that just falters the Mavs even more. So I think that that's how we're feeling about it, Dev. How do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I pick Clippers in 5.
Okay.
Yeah, the thing about Kristaps is that it would be really interesting and kind of ironic to see the Knicks move on further in the playoffs than the Mavs after that Kristaps trade. And it's a shame because I hope he can get healthy. because he's great player, fun to watch, and I feel like he fits the league perfectly with his his outside shooting. But yeah, it just seems like he's never been able to like put together a fully healthy career so far.
I think the Mavs are in good position for the future, but in a West like this, there's going to be a team that has the short end of the stick, and that short end of the stick for me is the team that has to play the Clippers in the first round. They're just the least. They're just the most on paper kind of ready team for these playoffs, and I think Dallas is going to be fine. They just need to tweak their roster, and they don't need to like. I don't know if they need to trade Kristaps. They might have to make that decision if they have another 1 or 2 seasons and Luka's getting to 25 and they haven't gone to if they only get to like the second round next year or in the next 2 years, they might have to trade him. But I think right now Dallas is fine. This is just not their season. They're still a couple years away.
So let's shift gears to the East. First matchup we have is a 1 seed 76ers. And officially the Wizards will be the 8th seed. So we have Bradley Beal and Russ against Embiid and Philadelphia. Who wants to go first with this one?
This is sweet.
Yeah, it's gonna be a clean
Wizards
sweep.
are gonna sweep.
The gentleman,
Yeah. Playoff Russ, man.
I'm gonna give the Wizards a little more credit. I'll give them one game. I think Beal and Russ can pull out one, but yeah, it's gonna be tough.
Who's going to be guarding Embiid?
Yeah, it's gonna be Robin Lopez or Hachimura.
Rui Hachimura. I love when Lopez Rillo comes on and
That's going to be at least 45. I'm sorry.
or Daniel Gafford.
That's going to be at least 45 by Embiid.
Daniel Gafford kind of has Daniel Gafford looks like a really nice guy. I really like his attitude. But yeah, no, Washington is so completely flawed as a team. Beal is hurt. It sucks because I'm so excited to see Beal in a playoff situation for the first time.
Yeah.
It just not the first time, but like prime Beal in a playoff situation.
It feels like it's been a while.
It really does. Yeah. I was so excited to see what he could do in the game against Boston, and yeah, really disappointing that he's hurt. And Russ, man, Russ is just that guy. Russ is that guy you root for, you defend him, you love this guy, but then you like in these big games. So full disclosure, friends of the pod, I didn't see the game tonight. So I don't know how Russ did today. And there was the conspiracy theory going around that he intentionally threw the game against Boston because he wanted to play Philly instead of Brooklyn. But it was playoff. It was the same stuff that we saw in the bubble. Just bad decision making, turnovers, forced shots that miss really, really poorly. Mid-range jumpers that miss really poorly. Oh man, Russ, just high stats and just a complete negative on the floor sometimes. And Scott Brooks, by the way, the last point I want to make is Scott Brooks in the play-in game against Boston, and now I'm blanking on they put Beal on Tatum for the entire third quarter, which is Tatum's best quarter. And they kept ISOing. In fact, they kept trying to look for the switch to try to get Beal to guard whoever was going to make the play on the Celts. And Brooks just made no adjustments. He just kept Beal on Tatum the entire quarter, just zero adjustments. And Tatum just ate. It was a clinic. It was an absolute clinic. Like there's nothing they could do against him. So I think Scott Brooks is really frustrating. I think he and Russ are just like two great guys that just break your heart over and over again.
Yeah, Scott Brooks, he's in contention for one of the worst coaches in the league. It seems like he doesn't really have a game plan. Kind of just tells his stars to do whatever they can.
No.
Ironically, he played this Bjorkman guy who coaches the Pacers, and like there's that Bleacher Report story about how Nate Bjorkman is like lost his locker room and everybody hates him, and there's all this drama. So
Right.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be a sweep, and it won't even be a close sweep. I'd be surprised if there's a game that like is decided by less than double digits.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
So next matchup in the East is the Brooklyn Nets against the Boston Celtics. Nets are the 2 seed. They'll be hosting Celtics, who won the playing game against the Wizards. This is not obviously the Celtics team that we saw last year that made the Eastern Conference Finals. No Jaylen Brown, and they've had a really rough year for the most part. Fighting for the 7th and 8th place. Brooklyn, it looks like they're fully healthy for the most part. And yeah, I think this is gonna be 4 or 5 for me. I'm gonna say Nets in 5.
Yeah, I think it's a sweep as well.
So
I actually disagree. I think the Celtics will take 2 off of them. I think they're just a great playoff team. I think Marcus Smart's really good in half court defense in the playoffs. I think Kemba just has a quiet 25 or quiet 24, but when with him in the driver's seat a little bit more, if he can get into the driver's seat and just score a lot, I think Celtics can pull off 2 games at home. Tatum's playing his best basketball right now. His offensive games at least is kind of flawless. And I think the Celtics have a pretty deep lineup that they can lean on. I think they'll be remembered as a team that kind of like.
Did we lose Shomik?
Oh no.
It's
going to be a Nets in 6 probably.
Nets in 6, okay.
I skipped out there for a second.
Oh no.
But I don't know, man. I just don't see them having enough offensive power. I could see them winning game 1, if anything. But at the end of the day, this is a Net squad that has James Harden, Kyrie, and KD.
And I feel like, if they're all, focused, locked in, playoff mode, should take care of business. They're going to be tough out for anyone in the East.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're debating between 4 and 5 and 6. I mean, Nets are going to win this series for sure. They're going to win it running away at the end.
So this next one, it's a rematch as well of last year, the Bucks and the Miami Heat, which was the infamous, Miami just coming out of nowhere and just taking care of business against a Bucks team that many thought was going to make the finals. This one, for the most part, you have Drew Holiday, but for the most part, these are pretty much the same teams we saw last year, right? And part of me wants to pick the Heat, but part of me also says, Milwaukee's a different team. Giannis is playing the best basketball of his career, so I'm gonna let one of you guys pick first. Miami, Milwaukee. Do you guys think they're pulling off the upset again, or are the Bucks taking care of business?
I think I've thought about this pretty much all day, to be honest, because I follow Jimmy Butler on Instagram, and he's
I love that dedication.
Surprisingly, I've been thinking about this all day. This is the only thing I've been thinking about.
I just want to see like the montage of Bobby brushing his teeth, filling gas.
I love the dedication
to with his mom.
No, I was really eating my breakfast pondering, But in all seriousness, I saw Jimmy Butler's post, and he was just like completely dialed in, and it's just him, just mega jacked, his arms just pumped.
The black and white photo.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just like really thought about it. I was like, when Jimmy Butler dials in, he's a different breed. So, with that being said, I think that Bam is going to come to play, and they're gonna set that defensive just ideology for the team. Yeah, just the way they play the defense. But at the end of the day, I still think Giannis is a man on a mission, and I think this is going to be Bucks in 7. That's my thinking towards it. It's going to be a hard fought series.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'll say that Miami's slightly worse than they were last year, just because of cohesion and health and consistency, and I think Milwaukee's way better than they were last season because Drew adds just that much to the team. He's really that good, and PJ Tucker has been a great addition for them. He bangs down low and adds like a kind of physicality that they didn't have against Miami, especially guarding the perimeter, because the Bucks just let Miami rain threes in the bubble, and Miami was historically amazing in the bubble at shooting, and Milwaukee just wasn't built for it. And PJ will add that. Drew will add a lot of firepower offensively, and he sets the floor, the table set when he has the ball in his hands, like in a way that they just didn't have before with Bledsoe or George Hill or somebody in the past. Like, and just like we're talking about with the Clippers and Batum, like, and Drew is like a bona fide star point guard. He's that good. I think the Bucks will be good, but on the other hand, Miami Bam is better this year than he was last year. He's better defensively. He can literally guard guards at the wing and the perimeter and shut down 3-point attempts. He's that good, which other bigs, like other good defensive bigs, can't do. They get stretched and it's a mismatch.
The only other big that I could think that does that is AD. That could kind of just
Right.
1-5 like that.
Right. And AD is AD, he's super spry. So I think Miami, there's one other superstar Miami has that we haven't discussed on that team, and that is Coach Eric Spoelstra. That guy is probably the best coach in the league, and at times, I don't know, just the last 10 years, what he's done. That team last year was just ironclad. Like, they didn't make mistakes. They never made mistakes. They didn't make mistakes until they started getting injured against the Lakers, and they kind of panicked. So with Butler, with Spoelstra, it's going to be tough. It's going to be gritty, but Milwaukee's going to get its revenge. Giannis it'll be an emotional Game 7 victory for the Bucks.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Bucks in 7 as well. I would like the Bucks have been playing. I feel like it's the same story every year. They have an amazing regular season. Giannis has MVP caliber year, and then they get bounced early in the playoffs. I do think Drew Holiday, the addition, is gonna be a huge X factor for them. He's gonna bring a different element that they haven't had in the past. And so I would honestly take the Bucks in 6 or 5 if it wasn't for Eric Spoelstra, like you mentioned. I think he can win them in a playoff series where in games the margins are so thin. Having a coach like him is like a deciding factor. And Budenholzer, I think Spoelstra is going to run circles around him once again. But I'm going to take Bucks in 7. Yeah, they're going to get the revenge. And like you said, this Heat team, they've been dealing with a lot of injuries all season. So they haven't been the same. But I honestly, I kind of want to say the winner of this series is the Nets, because whoever comes out of this series is going to be, come out of a grueling series, and they have to face the Nets in the second round. So,
NBA is a cruel story sometimes.
All right, the last series we have in the East is the New York Knicks against the Atlanta Hawks. When I mentioned some of these series being coin flips, this is definitely one of them, because I can honestly see it going either way. Two very, very evenly matched teams at the 4 and 5 seed. Do you guys have any preference that you're leaning towards?
My gut says the Knicks, based off we've all heard about the way they've been playing and their defense, and Julius Randle, they're shooting 40% from 3 as a team, like all this stuff. But at the end of the day, I think the Hawks have more talent. I don't know if this is right, but I think they have more talented players. Trae Young, Boban, Clint Capella. Who else am I forgetting? They got DeAndre Hunter back. They have
Bogdanovich.
Yeah, that's who I'm forgetting. What does Kevin say? Bogey.
Bogey.
That is nickname. But yeah, they have a lot of solid guys that are ready at all times. So for that reason, I'm gonna go with the Hawks, just because they're a little deeper.
And how many?
Yeah.
How many games? I'll say 7. I think it's gonna be a great series.
Yeah, I agree 100% with what both of you guys said. I think it's a coin flip series for sure. I don't believe in the Knicks at all, but I don't believe in them in the context of playing the top 3 seeds in a series, because they're super one-dimensional offensively. Randall plays like 55 minutes a game, 42 minutes a game, and he's their offense. And if you can put the clamps on Randall, then you don't have guys who can create their own shot very easily, and you don't have really too many too much firepower offensively at all from the perimeter or inside. You have Taj Gibson on the starting lineup. RJ Barrett's extremely inconsistent offensively. Still, even if he's a good kind of creator and a good playmaker, he's not really reliable. He's still growing up. He's still a young player. So I think New York's actually super limited, and their best bet is defending really hard and defending people and wearing them out. And it's a great way to win a bunch of regular season games, but they're not for real, in my opinion. But Atlanta is also not for real, and Atlanta is also extremely young and extremely inexperienced and inconsistent with their shooting, and like flighty and fast, but also not very physical and not very not very not really imposing across 48 minutes. Like Detroit played them 3 times and we were in the game the entire way because Atlanta can't really sustain scoring and sustain defense across a whole game that easily. That said, I think the Hawks, I think this is going to be Trae Young's coming out party. I think Clint Capella is going to show just how talented he is on both sides, and as a rim runner and as a Randall stopper in this case. And Hawks going to pull out in 7.
Okay, so I'm gonna take the Knicks. I'm gonna take the Knicks in 6. I think in the playoffs, defense and coaching prevails most of the time. And Thibodeau, he's been there, and this Knicks team has been playing some of the best defense in the league, and I think they're peaking at the right time. Off the bench you have Derrick Rose, who's playing, some really resurgent basketball. This is going to be a huge series for RJ Barrett. I think this is the first time that Randall as well too, but this is for Barrett to show, if he can live up to the high praise that he received coming out of college. There was a lot of critics coming at him after his first season, and I think just a veteran presence that the Knicks have is going to push them over the edge, and I'm going to take the Knicks in 6.
It's a fair pick, man. It's a coin flip series.
It really is.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, that's all of the first round.
I'm excited to see how amazingly wrong we're all going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, excited for the playoffs. It starts on Saturday. We'll definitely be back for a second round preview.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Looking forward to that.
Yeah. So the games for the East are on Saturday and the West is on Sunday. Is that how it's going?
No, it's 2 games for each conference. The Clippers play on Saturday. I couldn't tell you the other ones, but
Lakers play on
I'm not
Sunday.
a Clippers fan.
I am for the friends of the pod who might not know, I'm a lifelong Detroit Pistons fan, and I will make a prediction that'll be set in stone and that will 100% come through. Pistons are at least in the play-in next year. Book it.
Oh, book it. Okay, I'll make a note.
Good iPhone reminder. Detroit's coming for you guys, and I need that good mojo from everybody who watches, everybody who tunes in. Bobby, Dev, I need the mojo for the lottery next month. Pistons have the second best odds by 1 game to get over 2 other teams to get the number 1 pick, the second best odds.
Really?
But the way they redid the lottery, 4 teams can jump us, and we could end up at 6th. So we need the juice, man. We need the good.
I'll throw something your way.
Quick prayer at night. That's all I'm asking for.
So Saturday we have Bucks, Heat, Clippers, Mavs, Celtics, Nets, Portland, Denver, and then Sundays Washington, Philly, LA, Phoenix, Atlanta, New York, and then the winner of Warriors, Grizzlies against Utah. Just looking at those games, we have some great basketball to look forward to.
Great slate of games.
For both days.
Saturday especially. I'm excited for Saturday.
Yeah.
And seeing you too, Dev. Bob, you coming through on Saturday?
Yeah, I'll be there, definitely.
All right. Good stuff, guys.
Yeah. I'd like to thank you guys for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. Remember, you can follow us on our socials, DJ Sports Pod on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and we'll catch you guys next time. We'll definitely be back at some point, possibly in the first round, but we'll definitely be back before the second round. So stay tuned for that one and take care. Make
Right
sure
before you go, I will say I pine for the days when Dev would say you can follow us on Twitter at DJ Sports Pod, on Instagram at DJ Sports Pod, on YouTube at DJ Sports Pod, Facebook at DJ Sports Pod.
Yeah, I finally realized I don't need to do that anymore.
You learn, bro. You just gotta keep working at it.
Yeah, just a reminder: make sure you get vaccinated if you can. Please wear your mask wherever they are asked for. So, catch you guys next time.
Brought to you by Jack Daniels.